Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Meshmix Media, in collaboration with Laghu, Udyog, Bharati, Karnataka, and IMS Foundation, is hosting this knowledge series on India's aerospace and defense. Laghu, Udyog, Bharati, and IMS Foundation is also the organizer of India Manufacturing Show, and this year they will be hosting the event from 6th to 8th of November in Bangalore International Exhibition Center. And today we are starting with the first topic, that is drones and UAV, and how it's powering India aerospace and defense renaissance. And a quick backdrop, why we have chosen this topic. As India accelerates its journey to become self-reliant in defense and aerospace hub, and drones and UAV are emerging as a critical component for both modern warfare and civilian application, from enhancing border security and intelligence to transforming logistics, disaster management. Drones are the future of strategic capabilities. So a drone is must for for different application. And let me introduce today's panel. We have with us Mr. Uday Narang, Director Suryodaya Vehicles, Chairman and Founder Omega Seki Mobility, which everybody knows. We have with us Mr. Hardik Someswar, Founder and CEO Aerodef Nexus. We have with us Mr. Ezi, Head of Product Management Idea Force Technology, Mr. Yash Sharma from Tech Eagle, and Mr. Sarath Chandra will be joining from New Sky, and he's stuck in traffic. So before we dive deep into the subject, we want to understand what each company does. So we'll start with Mr. Uday Narang. Uday-san, can you let us know more about Suryodaya and its initiative?
So, my name is Uday Narang. I'm the chairman of the Anglo Omega Group. I'm a founder of Omega Seki Mobility, but today I'm here. I am involved in all aspects of development of this country. I firmly believe in Viksit Bharat. India 2047. I think India is a country which is on the march. I think the development, the growth in all sectors of this country is today beyond anybody's doubt. I think we're going to be the third largest economy in the world. Suryodaya, was started by me about 2 years ago to build drones, to work in the drone sector. We are building state-of-the-art, completely make in India. We made that, promise to ourselves that we would do 100% as much as possible to make in India on our drone projects. We are working in a few areas. We're working on agriculture. We've got our DGC approval on our agriculture drone for spraying and multiple other works in the rural sector. We are working on kamikaze drones. We are working on surveillance drones. We are working on multiple other levels to build drones in the healthcare sector. So I've got a whole team of, I've got a team of about 20 R&D. It's been a very R&D focused company building products. We've been quietly working on it today. We are now at a stage after 2 years where we're going to see a host of multiple products coming. You can clearly see in the defense sector the need of drones. I mean, the days of where you need 1 million or 2 million soldiers. I mean, you could see with what Israel did in Iran. I mean, there was no soldiers involved. It was all done on, in the air. And I think what you saw with Operation Sindoor, I mean, it was all, again, primarily drones on both sides. So I think the use of the, drones in the Russian-Ukraine war, in Operation Sindoor, as well as what's happened across the world, is making this an area where I think there's going to be a lot of work, but I think work that should be done, make in India, not import. I'm sorry to say a large part of the drones that are being built in this country, the parts are just coming from China, we're assembling. I think I'm making, you know me, Dinesh-san, I speak my mind openly. I think a lot of the companies that are out there are just bringing stuff from China and assembling, and I think that needs to change. We decided, just like what we've done before with multiple other companies, spend the time on R&D, make sure that you build your hardware, software as much as possible in a very large scale in India, to work in defense, to work in agriculture, to work in logistics, obviously run a very large logistic company. So I think Suryodaya is an amalgamation of all of these activities. And number one goal is to make India more, more Viksit Bharat, to make it more in India and build, this journey. It's an experiment that has been, very, very, in terms of learning, in terms of bringing products, and we are going to take our time. We're not just about rushing it to the market to just put product, to put volume. I do marathons rather than sprints, and that's where Suryoday is. You'll see a host of new products. You'll see a lot of work getting done, but we are, going to spend more time on R&D, on better products, Make in India products, and hopefully, build a substantial company. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Uday-san. Sarath, can you let us know more about your company? What is it into, and different operations, what you are doing?
Hi, Dinesh. You can hear me, right?
Yes, Crystal.
Hi. So yeah, this is Sharath here. I represent NeoSky. NeoSky is a subsidiary of Ratan India. Ratan India is a conglomerate. We're into multiple streams for starting with power plants to e-commerce to EVs to fintech to drones and many others. We have two listed companies in BSE and NSE called Ratan India Enterprise and Power. Both are Fortune India 500 companies and valued close to about 2.5 billion in market cap. Started by an IIT Delhi alumni and a Harvard Business School alumni, so they started the group. NeoSky is a 100% subsidiary of Ratan India, and we're based in Bangalore. The group is based in Delhi. So we've also acquired a company called Throttle Aerospace from Bangalore. So between them, we are India's first company to have the DGC approved drone. We are India's first company to fly a drone beyond visual line of sight. We also have defense license to make drones. So that's the background of the company. We are into multiple segments. We are deeply into defense and state police and law and order. It's a big segment that we cater to with the range of surveillance drones, grenade dropping drones, and many others, including cargo and all. We're also having a portfolio of drones for mapping, for inspection, and many others, including videography and all that. So that's what it is. So we've supplied, our customers include the Indian Army, paramilitary forces like CRPF and all, different state polices, forests, IITs, and many others. One part of our business is also into drone skilling because there's a massive requirement of drone skilling, and I'm guessing as we go through the webinar, somebody's going to pick that up as well in terms of skilling. So we'll talk more about at that stage. But yeah, we're into drone skilling. We train people from armed forces, from schools, colleges, to paramilitary, to law and order, and many others. So
thanks, Sarath. Eddie, more about your company, what it does.
Okay, sure. So I'm sure anyone in the drone industry in India would have heard of IdeaForge because I think IdeaForge brought the concept of drones to the public through the Three Idiots movie, right? So the drone that people saw in the movie was a very early prototype of IdeaForge, and the company itself has been around for 17 years, so which is very early for the industry, not just in India but globally also. So we consider ourselves pioneers for the drone industry. And I think last 2 years back we got listed, so all our financials, everything is public, and so we predominantly focus on surveillance, so which is bulk of our largest customer is the Indian Army, and we also do civil drones, right? So in fact we are ranked third globally for dual use drones, which is both military and civil drones, and this is by the Drone Industry Insights, which is a German analyst firm, right? And they look at the industry as consumer drones and dual use drones, right? They have two rankings, and the reason they do that is these two have very different nuances, right? So when you look at a consumer drone or a civil drone, it has a product approach, whereas in case of military, there are some bulk large orders, and then you actually serve that, right? So the nature of these two businesses is slightly different. So that's the reason they claim that they have two different rankings. And so for dual use, we are ranked third globally, and in fact recently we won a large order from the Indian Army for the Switch platform. We just announced 137 crore order earlier this week, right? So so I think our focus is predominantly surveillance, and we continue to add other use cases, right? So for the Swamritva program, we are one of the largest suppliers, so we do a lot of mapping, and then now we are starting to look at inspection as a use case. So our approach is not to be the best just in India, but to build globally competitive products where, of course, the nature of the global drone industry, I think everyone is aware, it just comes from one country, which is our adversary, right? So I think which is something the entire world is looking for alternative, and I think India is probably best positioned to provide that alternative, right? So we want to lead that race and see how we can be a global alternative for drone supply from India. Yeah, I think probably with that brief introduction, I'll stop. And coming to myself, I've been with the company for 4 years. I head products and strategic partnerships. Prior to that, I was with Hewlett-Packard handling global products for almost 15 years. And one of the things which I see here is the drone industry is so small, so nascent, right? There is so much to learn from some of the mature industries. So all industries go through this cycle where they are very immature, and then there is a lot of consolidation that happens and the industry grows. So I feel that we are still very, very early in the development of the drone industry, and I try to take some learnings from mature IT infra industries and try to apply it here.
Yeah. Thanks, Iji. Hardik, more about your company, what it does.
Hi everyone, thank you. And before I talk about company, in this case, I'm going to talk about myself. I used to be with Collins Aerospace for about 17 years, and as probably you know, RTX is one of the largest aerospace and defense companies in the world. I left the company a little while ago and started what I'm calling Aerodef Nexus Group. I'm the founder and group CEO. We have 3 legal entities, one in India, one in US, and one in France. And someone may ask, why would you do so much corporate governance? Because we wanted to build a global company from day one. What we are building is a combination of several companies, and our phase 1, we're trying to be the McKinseys of aerospace and defense for developing markets. We're also trying to be the EDX for aerospace and defense. We're also trying to be the capital providers, because the cost of capital is just too high. But our long-term vision is to be the Boeing or Airbus of India. We have 5 archetypes of different planes, and we are working with all national authorities in whichever markets we play in, including programs such as Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, Indian multi-role helicopter. We're not going to play in the markets where we cannot win. We think like a conglomerate, even though we are a startup. We will only play in the markets where we can be either number 1 or number 2. We're not here to compete with anyone. We are here to complement. Our play is more of an ecosystem play rather than anything else. We just floated an RFQ for a 100-acre land parcel, and that's just beginning. Believe me, we're looking at building a Seattle of Toulouse of India. And we're looking at acquiring about 500 acres to 800 acres of land, where we would have a cluster, literally a mega cluster, where you would have a defense program going on, a civil program going on. Our cluster will be close to a 2-kilometer tarmac. Our target is not the wide body aircrafts yet. It's the fighters, it's the biz jets, and it's the A320neos and 737s. And we're looking at a full life cycle of any program that we look at, right? So we'll look at it right from conceptual design and development, manufacturing, supply chain, leasing the aircraft, even having a venture arm of ourselves. The entire life cycle, like a Boeing or Airbus would work. And that's what we're trying to build. Now, I know it's quite a challenging task, and someone may laugh at it, but that's where people like me and many others in this room come in. And I'm not here to compete with anyone. I'm here to actually work with everyone. We've actually signed about 3 or 4 strategic partnerships with a composite player, which is backed by Zoho. We've signed a strategic partnership with an AS 9120 certified distributor and an engineering services company. And we're looking at signing more and more partnership. All that we do will be done by a partnership. If you've heard about One World Alliance and airlines industry, that's the model that we are following for our growth. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Hardik, and looking forward to hear more from you. Yash, more about your company, what it does.
Sure. So we at TechEagle are developing AI-enabled dual-use drones, both for civilian and defense purposes. So in civilian, we are one of the biggest companies in India that is serving the logistics part. So back in 2022, we established India's first drone delivery hub and network in Meghalaya, which is still operational, wherein from a centralized hub in Meghalaya, we are delivering to 30 different locations on a day-to-day basis, the healthcare items Similarly, we have expanded our operations to different parts of Northeast India, uh, along with the parts of Himachal and Uttarakhand as well. So this was with respect to our civilian use case. Then when it comes to defense, we are just entering defense, but we had made quite a bang with the recent trials that we have engaged in with the defense forces. And yes, our systems are capable and built for the robust conditions, and we have proven it in those conditions. And yes, we are not only building the hardware, we are also working towards autonomy, uh, multiplying AI with the physical systems, calling it physical intelligence. And because there are going to be thousands of drones into the air, and no person or human can control a lot of drones at the same time. So we are working on the autonomy part of our systems as well.
Thanks, Yash, for the introduction. So we wanted to now let's start with the diving deep into the subject with a bigger question. What will it take India to emerge as a hub for drone export and advanced UAV R&D? So I want to start with Uday San.
Right.
So what will it take India to emerge as a hub for drone exports? And
So I think look, we've got to build a village. I think there's a lot of work going on, but I would like clusters to be built. I mean, if you look at and I'm going to say clearly, the Chinese, what they have built with drones, or the scale at which they have built, we've got to have not just OEMs. We have to have suppliers. We have to have financing. We have to build that whole ecosystem, right? For us to be an exporting drone, country, we have to be able to have, scale. We need to have quality. We need to have software, hardware. We've got to have, a complete set of, companies that are involved in all parts, of the drone sector. We also have to have enough engineers. We have to have enough people understanding on software. We've got to be able to have enough, cameras, high quality cameras, motors. This requires, as I said, we've got to make sure that we have a very large scale, production capability and technology capability in India. We've got to have educational programs that are putting more and more emphasis on this. We've got to be able to have some level of government, subsidy or PLI schemes, like we had in the electric sector, to give this more of a boost. And we've got to finally have companies to work as complements. It's not a competition. It's about, building enough, infrastructure, enough scale. And I keep coming back to it. If you're not going to be scale, you're not going to be profitable. If you're not going to be profitable, most of these drone companies are based on, working towards building. They'll be, they're not PAT positive, or they're not generating. They'll be run out of funds. So I think that just depending on private equity money. So a large amount of the drone companies are companies that are, PVC or private capital funded, right? So to see the sustainability, they need to get scale. To get scale, they need to make sure that this ecosystem gets built. I think we've got to spend a lot of time together on building this. I think having the engineers, having the ecosystem, having the clusters is extremely important. And I'm going to say this: the experience that I've had in building, building companies, especially also in the EV sector, is, but the demand is quite significant. I mean, I think at the moment, forget about export. We have internal demand, we have defense demand, which is so substantial that if we can do enough here, then we talk about building an export hub. But I think we've got to be able to build. I think the best thing is if we can have drone clusters where all sorts of people can work in a scale base. like the Chinese have built. I think this is something that we're going to have to do. If we're all over the place and we are, sort of in smaller companies, I think profitability is going to be hard to come. So I think this is something very important.
Thanks for this, son. Sarath?
Yeah, so good question. So, see, in my view, I think the fundamental pillar starts with demand. Unless until you generate enough demand, like the earlier speaker mentioned, that at some point you're going to run out of the gas, right? So, there is no business model specifically in many countries, especially in India, which doesn't anchor on your in-house demand. So that's extremely important that you anchor the whole industry on that. You try to be somebody else's offshore partner. That model works with certain few categories. But if you look back at where India made success over the last multiple decades, IT stands out as one of the classic examples. Even that is to a great extent initially started by your own, adoption of the technology, and then you started becoming somebody else's offshore, right? So in my view, demand is a big pillar that itself will drive multiple other things, including innovation and all that. Today, the reason why I picked demand is because of Operation Sindoor and what has happened there, because that looks like a big bubble if you were to just put up a chart there. So your in-house demand for defense is going to be so huge for this country and multiple other countries, which is looking for security on their own. So it has to be anchored on internal demand across the categories. I would broadly put them in three. One is defense, because that will be the biggest pie which everybody would be chasing. Followed by inland security, because typically defense is where the technology starts. Internet started from there. Every other thing that you look at starts from there and then trickles downwards. So after the recent situations, you also see a lot of demand coming in from, Homeland Security, CRPF and many others. So everybody will follow what is required there. Plus the enterprise segment, obviously the CAGR would be much lesser there. So demand is where it's anchored. And if I were to put the fundamental pillars underneath that, it has to be technology. In today's market, you cannot make a product that is not going to eventually deliver to the end customer, whether it is, in-house or externally. So you have to be extremely good at technology. We cannot be building global hubs, dreams, unless until your tech is on par with the best, or if not better than the rest. So we know the hubs of drones. So the earlier speakers talked about one of our neighboring country being one. We know Turkey being another. We know Israel has possibly one of the best tech, and Ukraine has picked up over the last 3 years. For it to become, you have to be better than any of them and have to be deeply routed. What we've seen for India is most of the copy paste across the other parts of the world is not going to work in India. You have to develop things which are very, very, very unique to India. It works for cars. It works for every industry that we all have looked at or worked with earlier. So that customization has to happen. That is anchored on deep tech. The tech that is not just looking at, I'll make one more cheaper drone here, but on par with the global players. Just one or two small examples of the new things that have been talked about now after Operation Sindoor is about electronic warfare. How are your UAVs and drones able to take care of that? Now you're not talking about some cheap, small tech of drones just flying for a kilometer or 5 kilometers away. You are talking about a drone that is going to be, cut with the rest of the world, right? And that is the only way you can stand a chance. So yes, demand is the only way you can become a hub, and demand has to start internally and then looking upwards. Outwards, there is no challenge of demand at this stage, right? So given how many wars are happening all around, there's an active war for the last 3 years on Ukraine. Armenia keeps, becoming a hotspot. Iran looks like cool down now, but you never know. So there is no end of that. So demand, you will get it as long as you are cut above the rest. So yeah.
Thanks, Sarath. Eji?
So I think at least last year or so, we've been exploring international market, right? So as I said, there is definitely a need for an alternate to Chinese ecosystem. So people are looking at something which is not Chinese, not just Chinese drones, but drones which don't have Chinese components, right? So if you look at the US federal requirements, there is NDAA, which is National Defense Authorization Act, which says there are 9 critical components in the drone. None of it should be from country of concern, which is China. So that is the opportunity for us as an Indian manufacturer, if we can build drones, and we do have drones which are NDAA compliant, and that is the market that we are trying to explore. But I would completely echo what Uday had said, right? So we need to look at ourselves as an industry. Instead of trying to compete here, there is so much opportunity. And if we look at the world as the opportunity, then I don't think there is a dearth of opportunity. We just need to see how we capitalize on that, right? And that happens with economies of scale. So if you look at what is the market size, we try to have, I don't know, last I heard there are like 200 or 300 drone companies in India. Do we have an market for 200, 300 drone companies? Obviously not, right? So if we take the example from the auto industry, there are probably handful of auto manufacturers. If you take Tata Motors, Maruti Suzuki, you can count them maybe in two hands, right? But how many auto component manufacturers are there? There are like in thousands. So I think what the industry needs to think of is there are so many components in a drone. Can I pick one and then can I specialize it so that I'm one of the best in the world? Then I'm not just supplying to Indian OEMs. I can export it because there is a huge demand for alternate to Chinese supply chain, right? So it's not just about cost, right? If you're able to give good quality, people are ready to pay the premium and pick it from you. And just to give you one example, so I think there is this company called Nautical Wings. So in fact, I found them in one of the DRDO events where Shiv was their CEO and co-founder. He had a prop in his hand. I was like very surprised. The package was like iPhone packaging. So when I asked him, he said, "Yeah, it's made in India. I'm the CEO, I'm the founder, right?" So I immediately introduced him to our supply team, SCM team, and then they started testing the props. We found it as a great alternative to the things that we import. We actually made an initial investment in the company, and then they have went on to raise more funds. So I think we are very committed to build this ecosystem because one of our top priorities is to indigenize the supply chain.
Yes.
So it's not, we have achieved almost 90% plus in most of our drones, and none of it is from China. In fact, one of the orders that we recently won, that is an inspection by the defense officials to check if any of the components are from China, right? So we were able to achieve it because we have kind of changed the complete supply chain where none of the components are from China. But there is opportunity to indigenize more, where especially sensors and things like that, where we don't have an option, but motors, sensors, batteries, there is definitely a huge opportunity for the Indian ecosystem to step up and help, right?
Thanks, Iggy. And Yash?
Yeah, so I'll just keep it short. So in our opinion, two things are very much required for us. That first is money, second is the ecosystem. So money, when we say money, it's like the investors needs to be confident more in the deep tech startups. They a lot of portion of the overall investment that comes in, it's more on the software side, but not on the hardware side. So investors needs to take that risk and invest in startups that are into deep tech. So for example, as mentioned by Azzy, that IdeaBoards is one of the company that invests in deep tech startups. And similarly, the whole ecosystem needs to develop with the same mindset. And as everyone has mentioned, the component the manufacturing has to go to the component level, and then we can grow as an ecosystem, as an industry, which is very much required.
Thanks, Yash. And policies plays a very important role. So my second question is, are current DGCA guidelines and defense procurement policies are supportive enough for rapid drone adoption? Udasan, Sarath, would you like to take this?
Yeah, so like any industry matures, so this is also a regulated industry. Okay, so you can't obviously expect a fully liberal things, but a lot has happened since 2021 and maybe slightly before that. But there'll always be a scope of improvement beyond that. So you mentioned two different things. So one is a DGCA,
Yes.
which regulates bulk of the industry in the mainland, and then obviously you talked also about defense, which is not
Exactly.
necessarily a subset of this. That could be a slightly different piece altogether. So as far as DGCA is concerned, I think there is a lot of work, like I said, happened over the last many years, which is what led to where we are today as an industry. Okay, whatever you see, these 30,000 flows to RPCs or the pilots being generated in the country today, or 10,000 odd UINs being registered, it's all because of those changes that have happened. I think more simplification would be needed, because as manufacturers, we're seeing a massive changes in supply chain. I think it's the world that has realized after COVID that supply chain is possibly one of the differentiators, not just one among the things across multiple categories. And with so many changes happening geopolitically and otherwise on many other things, including rare earth metals and all, supply chain will become a crucial piece beyond the tech that we spoke of in the earlier part of the conversation. So when those things happen, every time as an OEM, you need to be responsible as what are the calls that you're taking. But in some cases, you still have to go to DGCA for every simple change that you do for your drone for certification norms. So those changes and simplifications obviously would be needed. Nobody's expecting it to be a full liberal thing, but at least a delta to just move from A to B as long as the performance is good, and we can share the logs or some mechanism wherein it can become more simplified process. So that is one. When it comes to defense procurement, I think defense would look at massifying, and they've been critical and driving hard about Make in India, which is sort of happening and will continue to happen. At the same time, they will look for consolidation. Okay. Some of the speakers already talked about the number of players and what will happen. I guess the push at this stage is if you really wanted to drive defense, there is an additional 50,000 crore that has been kept aside this year in the budget, right? Beyond what has sort of been approved in the financial budget for defense. So if that starts pumping into the Indian defense industry, that itself is heavy growth, as long as the industry stays on course with creating differentiation. So I would say DGCA is more simplification, and then for defense, it would be more about the Make in India push. So these are the two things. The second will take some time, but you have to start, more and more at this stage because your budgets are going up. So those are my 2 comments.
Sir, Uday-san?
Sorry, I had a technical difficulty. Yeah, what was your question, please? I'm sorry.
It was, does it take, DGCA guidelines and defense procurement policies supportive enough, to further drone adoption?
Look, I think
Two different things.
I think there are obviously very DGCA has very very strict policies, which I think in the drone business you need to. There are security issues, there are safety issues. I think they have been very supportive. I think they have been very open-minded. We've been working with DGCA. We've got our drones approved there. Obviously, I think this is a continuous work in progress. There's a lot of new developments going on, a lot of new products, approvals, safer products. So overall, for me, the experience has been very positive. I find them, very, very open to, talking and looking at things. It will take time. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So no, overall, I'm extremely supportive of what DGCA and the government is very supportive. Listen, for us, everybody would want more support. But I think in this journey, it has to be a public-private partnership. You can't expect everything from them, and we can't expect anything from the private sector. I think, again, any business that's being built has to be long-term. And I think, the government agencies, listen, for me, you've got to make sure that we are engaged, whether it's sitting, on the policies together, whether it's spending time with the government agencies, with working with DGCA and others. And I think this is going to be a long-term game. And I think we will see changes. We will work towards a better process. But for me, my experience has been very positive on DGCA.
Thanks, Uday-san. Eji, your views?
Yeah, so I think I largely agree with what the previous speaker. So the nature of the industry is that it has to be regulated, unfortunately, which is a very, very unfortunate part, but that is the reality. Though I think we've been long enough to see where the drones were completely banned almost 10 years back. From there, I think we have come a long way. And as Sarath said, I think after the 2021 drone rules, things are a lot better. But a couple of areas where I think it'll help is, for example, the TC type certification lead time is very long, right? It takes a few months. And for a large manufacturer like us, where we have so many models and so many combinations of payloads, it becomes a real hurdle to, it increases our time to market, which doesn't help the industry in a way. So if that can be moved from months to weeks, I think it will help in terms of the industry a lot. And the other thing is, we know that 95% of India is green zone. But then where does the business happen? 90% of the business happens in the red zone because those are the cities around the airports and things like that. So which again becomes a hurdle for real drone adoption in cities for deliveries and things like that, right? So I feel that, but I think these are not easy things. Probably some of it will take time, but as long as there is the intent to move towards it and to come up with BVLOS regulation, I think we are good.
Thanks, Adi. Yash?
Yes. So as mentioned by everyone here, we are a growing industry. We are just starting up as an industry, and you can see anywhere in the world, any new industry is growing. It does take the whole ecosystem to grow together. So be the other stakeholders such as DGCA and all the regulators and defense forces, they are also adopting along with the whole industry, and it's going in the positive direction, and that's what matters, as mentioned by everyone. So yes, we are on the right path, though some gaps are there, and everyone is trying to fulfill it, and industry along with the regulators are also trying hard to get those regulations eased that are not working in favor of the industry. So yes, it's on a positive part overall.
Okay. Thanks, Yash. Data and company security is plays a very important role. So, what sort of steps as a drone manufacturers you people are taking so that the safety and security part of the drone is taken care of? Sir, can you elaborate on that? The safety and security of the data from the drone.
See, this is pretty much has got the attention what it deserves across all categories and segments. So whether it's mobility or everything else, even CCTV's data has now been looked at with the manufacturing origin of the country and all that. So nobody's going to obviously let a new category like a drone would let that pass. So you obviously would see a massive push on this, and I must also say that this will start becoming a table stake. It won't be just a differentiator anymore in the future. The onus will be as per the the drone rules about the data privacy will come back to the end user / the OEM and to the certification and what we do for it. See, encryption is obviously the most basic thing that pretty much most gadgets have, and the drone will have as well. Beyond this, if you were to look at, from a surveillance and defense scenario, because that is also part of the question, I think, is
Yes.
there is a lot more push on electronic warfare and being the UAVs compatible with that. Again, it's sort of started becoming a table stake, because what's the point in sending a drone outside of the LOC, which you cannot, control from jamming or whatever, right? So I think that is sort of an important leg of the innovation that's sort of coming in pretty early. Same with all the others, whether it's, how are you resisting from GPS spoofing to the anti-jamming and sort of many others. All this will go back to some points that we spoke earlier, which is about how are you anchoring that as, a Make in India solutions. If you try to plug and play something else, there is nothing which is in your control. Yes, you can change from country A to country B, but it still go beyond the locus of Indian control. So as much as you can put that within India, it does not only stop at the hardware, it stops with the software. It talks about AIML. Today, most drones are AIML compatible. So what servers that you are leaning on, what safety nets you put, etc., starts becoming extremely important. And as OEMs, I'm sure all of us are working on that, and we are definitely as NeoSky working on that.
Thanks, sir. Uday?
Yeah, obviously the DGCA has taken several, progressive steps to support the drone business in India. Notably, if you look at it with the liberalized drone rules of 2021 and the launch of the Digital Sky platform, this is something that's extremely important, which simplified permissions and, encouraged, domestic, through PLI schemes for drone manufacturing. Obviously, all these policies have helped legitimize and structure the drone ecosystem, which has allowed startups like us and others, enterprises, to innovate, in areas in the agriculture, logistics, surveillance, multiple other areas that is coming, especially around, if we all talk about is the BVLOS, which is the Beyond Visual Line of Sight operations and slow approval cycles, which continue to limit large-scale commercial deployment. But what's important is the regulatory environment is moving in the right direction. The country is moving, and to continuously, we need to move towards to clear, the timelines, the delays that have been happening. Some of our, fellow panelists have been talking about. But I'll keep saying this. This is going to take time. This is a marathon, and I'm going to tell you clearly. The drone business is a business that is, taking, over the skies, and there are going to be limitations, and we're going to have to work together as a team. And I think if we all think about, this is what I love about Elon. He says, I'm going to have open source and everybody can look at it and build a better product. We've got to think about building a better product for this country. And I think in this competition, I think we leave that competition, the movie the trailer hasn't even started. The movie's a long way down the road. And I think it's got a long way to go. So I think we all work together, we align forces together. I think a lot can be done.
Hardik, your views on this?
Yeah, we essentially need, I have a slightly different opinion. While, Make in India is great, we all know how much can be done in India. And not for, look at China, for an example, and we talked about China before as well. When they built the C919, 90% of the components on C919 were sourced from Western parts of the world. And eventually they moved up in the value chain, and now there's a lot of localized content. So I personally think, while Make in India is great and we'll do as much as possible in India, we need strong international partnerships to build world-class products out of India, which are faster, cheaper, and we ship them all over the world. Today, you talk to any American companies, and being from an American company, the view about working in India is, hey, it's just too hard to work in India. I would rather walk out of this market, right? And that's the view a lot of Americans have. Europeans, Israelis may not have that view. But let's accept it. We have several bureaucratic hurdles, and we need to work together. Like Uday was saying, we need everyone to come together. We got to build a village, and we got to build an ecosystem. And I don't think it's just government's job. It is all of our job to build that village where we could do things that are meaningful. We can make 5th gen fighter faster, cheaper, and ship that all over the world. Now, HAL has been in existence for decades. I walk into that campus, believe me, if I was the CEO, I would turn that campus into a $10 billion company, which is a $3.5 billion company. So what can we do? How could we drive efficiency? How could we drive AI? How could we drive automation? And on top of that, I personally believe in lean product development, lean product management. I learned from the best of the folks. I could tell you a story. I was part of a business called RAR, based out of San Diego. The business was going to go bankrupt in 1990s. They were selling the furniture to survive. And then they brought in, the Lean Institute. They drove an entire transformation. And since then, the company has become the highest profitable business as far as the structures business is concerned. So I think we really need to have systems thinking. We got to have program management. A lot of you talked about deep tech, but deep tech is fine. You also need the systems of systems approach, and not just the technical side of things, but system as a country. Is our system functioning? Relationship between federal government, state governments, friction between these sometimes slow down projects. I've spoken to the guy who built the LCA Tejas. The gentleman was program director for 30 years. And why did it take us 30 years to build a 4th gen fighter? A lot of times we are criticized, but we were developing technologies. We had sanctions in between, we had Pokhran. So I think we got to be mindful of all of these aspects, and this business is a complex business. There's a lot of geopolitics that comes into play. It's not just about technology. And technology, yes, we'll do as much as we can in the country, but we got to be open to collaborating with the world. And we do whatever makes sense with whomsoever makes sense to make things faster, cheaper. And if you look at it today, I think that's the view the government has. Government wants to democratize this entire sector. And I think the opportunity is just limitless for all of us.
Thanks, Hardik. Ezzy, your views?
So on the secure communication and the whole cybersecurity aspects, if you look at it, I think one advantage we have is we control the complete stack, right? So we have our own autopilot, we build our own payloads, So that way we very closely guard the whole ecosystem. So obviously any communication with the GCS is completely secure, AES encryption, and what we see interestingly is sometimes we need to educate the user on the requirements, right? So in fact, there have been requirements where we want data on board and for the army, right? So it's a flying bird, and we don't, at least the systems we sold earlier didn't have GNSS denied or anything. So there is a high possibility that it flies away into the enemy territory. So we advise that it doesn't make sense to put on board SD card or any storage on board. So we always stream the data to the ground control station, which is completely secure, and there is nothing stored on board, right? There's not even a logs. And there have been instances where when flown closer to the border, things have crossed the border, but the adversary doesn't get any information, right? All that he gets is maybe the hardware, but there is no data on board. So that is, sometimes it's important how we design some of these systems. Whereas when we do the mapping, so when we do mapping, obviously we store data on board, we have an SD card on board. So I think sometimes we have to think through the ultimate job that the customer is trying to do, and then appropriately look at the security and data privacy and some of these aspects, right? And increasingly what we see is obviously EW. I think we've had this discussion earlier also. So in fact, in Aero India, we launched our GNSS denied capable drone. So what happens is, even if the GPS is jammed, the system will automatically return home so that you don't have a fly away scenario. And we also have automatic channel switching where if a particular frequency is jammed, then the communication switches to some other frequency and then it still continues, right? So it's like a cat and mouse game, right? It's the same with antivirus and virus. So anti-drone systems will get better, and then we have to do catch up, and then so it's and that's how I see this. It's never going to be done, but it's a continuous development that we need to focus on.
Thanks, Ajit. Yash?
Yeah, so I'll answer that in 3 points. So first one is the encryption of the data being transmitted. Second is decentralization of data, which the defense forces already follow. They don't store the whole data at a single place, so there is a decentralization of data. And third one is the anti-jamming capabilities of the UAVs. So that's it from my end.
Okay. And since we have Sarath and Uday, both have a EV background, and range anxiety is not only in electric vehicle, it is also in UAV and drone. So how are we solving the range anxiety in drone? And since AI is not a buzzword anymore, we have got ChatGPT. Every company wants to use AI in one form or the other. So I know it's a two different thing. How a company, we are using AI in drone, plus how are we solving range anxiety in terms of in drones and UAVs. Sarath, we'll start with you.
Okay, in the interest of time, maybe I'll pick the AI one. So yeah, I guess AI, it's good to talk about AI as a buzzword, but what's more important is to see how it is sort of gonna solve certain challenges which otherwise are not being solved. And more importantly, how do you make things more autonomous? The world is becoming more autonomous. Everything is sort of around in and around us is becoming more automated, things around that. So AI, the way I see it, is no more just a buzzword. It's more about how it's impacting a particular problem statement. Okay. So let's assume you are an enterprise. Let's not even go that far into defense and all that. You're an enterprise, you want to figure out a solution for surveillance of a particular area, which maybe billions of dollars have been spent in that particular SEZ or whatever it is. So starting with such a small example to, maybe law and order, police force and many others, the role of AI is not to position drone as some alien technology that somebody which is hugely experienced can only fly it, and then you will get the live feed and you are left to do things on your own. Okay, so the role of AI is to just make the drone data, information and everything that the drone is collecting, to make it such a spoon feed for the end customer that they only have to focus on the decision making. So decision making could be in a mapping domain, could be in an agriculture domain, could be about plucking a particular fruit, could be about traffic, could be about number plate, could be about anomaly detection of people walking in front of a particular gate of a high secured area. So AI's job is to understand the use case and make sure you give it in a way that it starts making sense in decision making. Bulk of the application that you see today is where it's sort of being developed / deployed. Okay, so for me, AI is an integral part of every drone technology, the way I see it going forward, so that drones become massification. We don't want this to be a niche technology. A country of 1.4 billion people, I don't want to see 30,000 of them having a drone pilot license. That makes absolutely no sense. For it to happen, AI is the only one which is going to play a role and make it extremely simplified. So that is what my input is.
I think I agree with you, Sarat-san. I would say clearly, in today's environment, drones in India obviously are becoming, all of them are increasingly using AI for autonomous navigation, obviously obstacle avoidance, crop health monitoring and precision agriculture, and obviously object detection and surveillance. AI algorithms will always enhance, flight planning and real-time decision-making and post-flight data analytics. We really have to understand that, combating range anxiety concerns about battery life, and obviously limited flight range is being addressed through obviously AI-optimized flight paths, energy-efficient routing, and predictive maintenance, reduce in-flight failures, and reduce battery. The future outlook, innovation like AI-based, swarm intelligence and hybrid power sources, are in pilot stages, which could further enhance, extend range, and make, our products more longer range, more safety. I think this is a work in progress. It will require a large amount of work, R&D, investment, and I keep saying, all of us got to work together. This is, it's like a marathon. The Kenyans all run the first 20 kilometers together and the last 6 kilometers. First kilometer, we got a long way to go. And I think in the drone technology, all of us got to work together to make this country. Listen, I'm going to say I'm more focused on India. I think we will make products for exports also. But first, I got to look at India first, and that's most important for me. India is a complex country. I know a lot of people from the outside find this country very difficult, but I said one thing, we've got a country which is young, which is dynamic, and the model that works in, I spent 30 years in the United States and Europe. When I come down to India, I think about, my mom said one thing: when you come down to India, don't complain, beta. Agar complain kariye, don't be here. Might as well sit in, sit in California or in New York. This is India. This is how it's going to work. You've got to figure out the system. And I'm going to say, Hardik ji, it's not an easy way. I've worked in the front lines of this country now for the past 10 years, especially in rural India. This is how it works. You take it or leave it. Otherwise, I think San Diego is a beautiful place. I spent enough time down there.
I'm a guy from a small little village in Kutch in Gujarat. I'm a Gujarat guy, 5,000 people. So I work with Americans, but doesn't mean anything. And I'm a 100% Indian guy, and I know how it works. But it's just difficult to sell this to outside world. And if we would, all I was trying to say is, India is a beautiful country. I believe in the macroeconomic factors. It's just that we got to make it a little more accelerated, and it's not just going to be.
Absolutely, Hardik, you're absolutely right, and I don't blame it. And believe you me, the Kutch is built so many these days. Gujarat is not just it's bringing out so many entrepreneurs, so much going on down there. I just feel that you're absolutely right. But I think you got to look India with the glasses of India. You can't look at the glasses of the United States or Europe. It's a very complex country, and the reason why I say it, I spend so much time in rural Tamil Nadu, rural UP, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar. It's a very different, it's a very different place. Gujarat is way advanced. Go spend some time in rural UP. Still feels like we're 50 years ago, So, or go down in Bihar. It's going to be, or go down in certain other parts. The south is much more developed. But as we get on the north, and I'll tell you, it's a very different country out here. But listen, the public is there. I cannot tell you how much demand is coming out of tier 3, 4 cities right now, how much development is going on. And so it's not an easy ride, But listen, we can't just get Modi ji to clean this place up. We all got to join him in cleaning this country.
Absolutely, I'm with you.
Thanks, Uday-san. Ezzy, your views on AI, and I also wanted to understand more about the range anxiety
Okay.
for the drone, the battery
Sure.
technology which you are working.
Sure. So, in fact, I think one of the things that we pride ourselves in is the performance of the drones. So, if we look at some of the systems that we have, for example, the Switch platform that we have sold a lot to the Indian Army, it's a 7 kg platform, right? We typically focus on man-portable systems where one person can carry it and fly it. And for 7 kgs, we have like 2.5 hours of endurance, so which is probably best in the world for that weight class. And we are able to achieve it by a combination of things, right? And we build our own payloads, we build our own gimbals. So we are able to optimize the system for the performance. That's number one. And the other very important thing is we try to, from an AI and autonomy point of view, we try to make the system mission focused and where it doesn't fail, right? For example, just to give you a simple capability, on a ground control station, we have a number of pre-flight checks, and there is a map which shows you the distance or the range that the drone can achieve. So it comes like a green, yellow, and red lines. So what happens is, if you typically think of the places where our drones are used, it's in the Himalayas. So you have a hill and then you have to cross the hill. So naturally, if you have to climb and then go, then the VTOL motors are used and your endurance is going to go down. So what we do is we have the simulation of that on our ground control station. So even before the drone takes off, someone can simulate and see whether I'll be able to reach the location that I'm looking at, right? So it could be, I can go maybe 5 kilometers on the north, but I can go only 3 kilometers on the south because there is a hill. I have to climb the hill and I have to lose battery for that. So that is one simple example where we ensure that the whole thing is simulated. You actually get a real feel of whether you'll be able to complete the mission. And we focus on mission completion, right? So that is one. And obviously we have all these fail-safes. So low battery, high wind, loss of comm, the system comes back on its own. And so thankfully, I think we have a very, very low mission failure or a crash rate on our system. So we looked at some numbers, some of the even global vendors, and we see that, in fact, we built, one of the reasons for that is we realized that quite often there was this fear of flying these drones because they didn't want to lose the system. For a lot of the Jawans, there was this feeling that if I lose it, then it'll come out of my salary. So they were really hesitant to fly. And they didn't want to even get into getting the skill, right? They avoided becoming a drone pilot. So then we realized that the system should take care of itself, right? So I might give this example. It's like, if you look at the computer world, it is like moving from JAWS to Windows GUI based, right? So I think the adoption will happen when a lot of these are autonomous, where it's not something like, even in terms of ratio, it can't be like one drone is flown by one pilot. Then naturally the economies don't work, right? It's like, so I think that's definitely one of the big focus for us, using AI and autonomy for our complete system. Both, we look at it two ways. One is for the flight control and in-flight operation. The other is from a workflow point of view. For example, you collect the data, how the data is processed and things like that. So we look at AI and autonomy on both these aspects.
Thanks, Ji. Hardik, your views?
Apologies, what was the question?
It was on the AI and the range anxiety for the drones, the adoption of AI.
Yeah, so AI, of course, we gotta have level 5 autonomy, on the edge, quantum computing. These are all the things that are gonna play out, and that's an area we have started doing some initial work in. We have a non-tech AI product, which is GDPR compliant, EAR compliant, and ITAR compliant. And all that you see in our company is built using that. We have plans to build, the AI autonomy logic. I think that's going to be the most critical thing. And not just for drones, you got to scale it up to, larger planes. And you go to developed markets, there are planes, and what you see behind me is a plane that will be powered by autonomy state, right? It's a 2-ton cargo aircraft. And I'm currently in the process of, designing the specifications. It's going to be in the range of 2 to 8 tons. You could use it for 3 purposes: cargo, ISR, and you could even use it for, let's say medevac operations. And I'm not looking at just Indian market. If you look at the market potential for this plane, is $500 million is what I'm looking at, right? So those are the type of bets that I am looking at. And like what I said before, these are all going to be long-term bets. It would take time, but there are ways, and you could be smart about it. A lot of times, all of us think about developing technologies ourselves. What I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to pick up an airframe that is certified. All I would do is put in an autonomy stake on top of it, certify the plane. And then I would go about, blended wing body and electric and all that. Those would be my phase two. And like what I said, you got to be a profitable business. You cannot run a business which is built on a venture capital money, because you need patient capital for these type of a business. You need LPs. I'm not going to raise money from anyone who's PEVC. I'm going to go to family offices, people who align to India's priorities, and LPs, and that's how I'm going to build this ecosystem.
Thanks, Hardik. Yash?
Yeah, thanks. So coming on to the range anxiety thing. So back in 2019, Shri Narendra Modi ji mentioned in a speech of his, we only don't need to make in India, we have to design in India, which is a very critical aspect that no one is addressing. That manufacturing can be done, we can make the things in India, but most importantly, designing. So when we talk about UAVs, the range of the platform depends more on how it is designed, how well it is designed, how well it is optimized. So I'll just give you an example. We at TechEagle took quite some time to design our system, and now we were able to achieve a range of 50 kilometers. That is a total distance of 100 kilometers. And it's not only on paper, it's tested in the every harsh environment at different altitudes, right from sea level to 4,000 meters altitude. So it's a very important aspect that we should address as an ecosystem, that we have to design the systems in India that are capable of reaching those particular ranges that are required by the end users. Now coming on to the AI, a lot of we as an industry has not actually understood what AI in UAVs is going to do. So what AI is, they collect data, they process data, they analyze data, and take action on that data. Take an action. But a lot of stakeholders, they are just stuck at the part till analyzing. The decision making part is not coming, where the physical intelligence of the system is taking the action on the basis of the data that they have got. So that's a very important and critical aspect that AI can address, and we as a stakeholder should encourage it and use AI in the right terms when we are using it in our systems. Because analyzing and processing, that can be done simply by image processing techniques, which exist for quite some time. So yeah, that's my part.
Thanks. Thanks, Yash. What we have seen, ladies and gentlemen, that skill gap and training are being skill gaps is faced in most of the industry. So Sarath, I wanted to ask in terms of your company, whether it's adoption of technology, what sort of skill gaps you see, and what industry should do to overcome those skill gaps, and plus what sort of ecosystem we should have to overcome this challenge, because we see it's been faced by most of the industries these days. Like in drone, how do you see it?
Well, see, if you see a skill gap, it's actually good news that the industry is moving forward and innovating, right? That's also another side of looking at the scheme of things. If an industry is very stale and it doesn't need too much of upskilling, then what is the fun in being an industry like that? So there is definitely silver lining when you look at an industry growth curve, and in business balance and strategy, we call it hockey stick. So when does an industry get that hockey stick, which means that the growth chart suddenly just tapers off, right? And takes off, not tapers off, sorry. So skill gap in that sense is good. See, definitely the drone industry would, among other tech and innovation industries, will have a reasonably big gap. In industries like this, you cannot teach, you have to learn. That's the only way in which we do that. So in a company like us, what we try to do is that everybody has to be a techie. Even if you're a sales guy, you need to be a techie. Even if you're a finance guy, you need to be a techie. That's the only way in which you can build a tech company. There is nothing else. Technology is not done by one department sitting in one corner of the office, some youngsters just fresh out of college. That's not what technology is. The adoption starts at home, charity starts at home. Everybody starting from the top to the bottom has to start learning, what does it take to build a drone? What does it take to assemble a drone? What it takes to fly a drone, to break a drone, everything else. So that's about the culture and about building within the company. Now to your larger point about ecosystem. See, drone, thanks to what happened in the last 3 years, specifically what happened after the 22nd of April, India is sitting in an amazing opportunity at this stage. Okay. From a drone industry, from the Indian context, we talked about becoming a drone hub by 2030, but to me, while there is drone liberalization rules and many others, I would say 22nd April and what happened after that would be definitely an important milestone, okay, for the industry. So in that sense, you'll have to build an ecosystem. So like 30, 40 years back, if you look at 1 to 1.5 generations before us, nobody was an engineer, right? From a software perspective or a computer perspective. They were all, bulk of the jobs that were created back then in the economy was banks and something else. So IT is an amazing example, BPO is an amazing example of how we took over and reskilled everybody to an extent that over the last 30 to 40 years, everybody wants to become an engineer more than anything else. So today you have that opportunity that will start from colleges and schools. It's not going to start by a company recruiting a few people and then start the training from there. So let's pick up some examples as to the most commonly your nieces, nephews, your cousins, and whoever talk about if they want to admit somebody into, a +1 or a +2 or into an engineering. What are the most obvious questions? Which institute, what stream, what domain, etc., etc. So drone, I keep calling as an enabler industry. It's not just a standalone industry. So let's say somebody's studying mechanical engineering. There is a drone angle to it. Somebody's studying civil. There is a mapping angle to it. Somebody's into agriculture tech or into agriculture. There is a drone angle to it. Somebody's into electronics. There is, a drone angle to it. Okay. Somebody's into AI. Somebody's into computer sciences. So today drone cuts across pretty much bulk of the streams that you have to start early. If you expect them to pass out of the college and then still learn about concepts of 1990s and 2000s and then come fresh to a drone industry, it's not going to work. So you have to go down all the way to, higher schools and more importantly, +1, +2 and beyond, and then start feeding this into them. Thanks to what happened over the last 4 or 5 days, every kid in the country today know what a drone is. Starting the 6th of June till the 10th of June, most of them were glued onto the TVs in spite of, past their bedtime, including my own family kids. Okay, they all got fascinated about what's happening. So today they know what a drone is. Okay, the base is already created, whether you like it or not. It may not be for the right reasons, but the base is created. Now you build on the base and start educating them. Okay, excite them about technology. Okay, computer science is pretty much of 20 years back. Today you excite them about drones, excite them about AI, and then see the potential. Then you will have a talent, okay, that no other country can match. This could be your path to the global hub. Okay. Today the problem with most economies, why they're not growing, is they don't have a young population. You have that. Okay. So catch them early, train them. You will have enough talent, and they will do wonders for you. And they've done that for other industries. Why would they not do it for this industry? It's as simple as that. And we as NeoSky is seeing an amazing interest from different colleges, okay, to set up drone labs in their institute, okay, to help their kids being an affiliate. So they become an extended arm to us. Where you can pass on certain projects that you don't want to do and they can pick it up. And these are reputed institutes, not smaller institutes. Some of them even come and say, do a 3-day workshop in our campus to just excite the students. So I see, this to be a path. The foundation is already laid. Yeah.
Okay. And you spoke about recruitment, sir. Any special, do's and don'ts in your company, and like you said, things have changed. So because so in selection criteria, what all you look at a candidate?
See, the most generic one that we always looked at is what is the aptitude and how is that more important than attitude. Okay. In a space that we are in where everything is changing, before April and after April, like I told you, many things have changed for us. Okay. So if you don't have the right attitude to learn and then go the last mile to find that right solution, irrespective of however is your aptitude, you're not going to. That's a generic thing. We don't apply that only for techies, but for everybody else. Okay. Okay. The other is the larger purpose. are you looking at contributing something to the cause, the larger cause and all that, right? Because they are going to work on those kind of projects. It may not give revenue immediately. It might need to go through multiple trials. Some of them may be in minus 10 degrees. Some of them may be in 3,700 or 4,000 meters above sea. So those guys should be willing to, slog it out, make sure that they go through all the grind and then eventually come out. So that is one. In terms of technology folks and others, yes, definitely a hands-on experience and how well they are groomed in their understanding well before they come in. Okay. Starting with the strong concepts, to build a drone, you'll need physics, you'll need the basics of, your basics has to be extremely strong. So we definitely look at that, but equally important on their practical experience. Out of 10 interviews that I do from an R&D perspective, I must say at least 3 or 4 of them say I've built a drone on my own. Okay. How much of that is true is a different challenge, but you see all that already happening well before they even come in for an interview, to the final round. So yes, these are something that I look at, yeah.
Thanks, Bharat. Uday?
What's important is, if you talk about the skill gap, obviously there's a clear skill gap in areas like, drone piloting, data analytics, maintenance and compliance, with evolving, obviously, DGCA regulations, especially in, tier 2 and 3 cities. Obviously, the industry action needed is the industry must invest. We have to invest in certified training programs, partnerships, whether it's with ITI and engineering colleges, working in creation of standardized curriculum for drone operations. AI integration and safety protocols is extremely important. Upskilling approach. Companies can upskill their workforce through hands-on, working through multiple areas, of hands-on simulator training, DGCA recognized remote pilot certification courses, and by also building in-house drone labs focused on real-world application across sectors like logistics, in agriculture sector, infrastructure mapping, and many other areas. This is something, we require, a long-term plan for. We've got to be able to upskill, upgrade our existing workforce. There's opportunities. People say AI is going to take jobs. I think AI is also going to offer multiple opportunities in many, many areas. I think this is one of those areas.
What are the key elements you look at, San, when you interview someone? I don't know you are interviewing these days or not.
These days, I'm not, there was a time when I started off, I used to. These days, I'm getting interviewed by people like you most of the time that I'm interviewing people. But honestly, I'm looking for one character. I know we look for PhDs and all of that, but what I look into people? Are they going to be able to, execute, in teams? India में मैंने एक बहुत अच्छी चीज सीखी है. सबसे बड़ी, सबसे important चीज, can they work in teams? Politics तो बाहर होती है, लेकिन company के अंदर, as companies grow and we become bigger and bigger, politics inside the company. So I want individuals that are committed. I want individuals that have the opportunity. If I give them a canvas, can they build a paint? Failure is not a problem. I take failure every day, but I'm looking for people that have energy, that can change, that can be committed. Integrity is number one, and people that have long-term. I'm not a person, when I see a CV, and you're right, these days I don't interview too many people. I've got teams that do that. But for me, are they changing jobs every 3 months or 6 months or a year? Sometimes I see CVs every year, they're changing a job. I'm like, how are you going to be committed to anybody? I know this is the new world. Some of the startup people are not going to love me for that, but I need some history. Maybe it's my gray hair. Dinesh San, I know you got some also, I think it's really people that have a longer term vision, people that want to run a marathon, people that are committed. I got no problem for failure. I want individuals, men and women, and I'm telling you, I'm finding women more powerful than guys. They're more committed, they're more focused. So anyway, I think, it's something that for me, I want people who have a little bit more longer term vision than just jumping from one job to another every 6 months or a year.
Thank you, Mr. Izzy. On the skill part.
So I think as a company, I think as Sarath mentioned, drone is a very, very multidisciplinary, right? There is software, there is hardware, there is aerospace, there is electronics, there is communication. So I think that way there is always an opportunity for anyone. So we continuously look, and we've started hiring a lot from campuses, which helps in terms of grooming people and helps us meet a lot of our long-term requirements, right? So it takes time for them to become productive, but then it helps in terms of building that funnel rather than trying to hire directly from the industry. So we do get a lot of campus hires for us. And coming on the industry front, obviously drone pilots, we recently got the RPTO license because we see that there is definitely a demand even for our own teams. We do get a lot of pilots engaged. So we've started doing that as well. And increasingly what I see it is it's becoming a tool, right? It's like 30 years back, 40 years back, knowing computers is a skill. So you need to program to get things out. Now, no one thinks of using a computer as a skill, right? So drone will become like that, where it's about the apps and what you get out of it. So for example, we have a multispectral sensor, you can fly it, you can get the NDVI index, but how do we get the crop yield estimation, for example? So that is very different for wheat or a paddy or sugarcane. So where we see gaps is there are huge opportunities where in terms of analyzing this data, coming up with insights. So if you take every layer or every aspect, you can peel 4 or 5 layers and create value out there, right? So it's up to each individual's interest in terms of how deep they want to go and what they want to do. But I see that there is a tremendous set of opportunities, but people just need to go deeper in each of these, right? Whether it is one of the challenges we see is in terms of our payloads, optics. So it's very hard to get people who have such high skill on the optics, because when we try and build the payloads, we see that there is a challenge there, right? So there is definitely gaps in some of these areas. So which is not necessarily core to the drone industry, but people who have skill set deep in each of these areas can obviously contribute at a much higher level for the drone industry.
What all you look at the candidate in hiring?
I think it's very hard to say. I think people have covered a lot of things. I think the ability to learn, I would say, is one of the key skills, right? It's like, because the world changes so often, you can't just be static in terms of what you know. I think you need to be a continuous learner, and I think that will definitely help in terms of adapting to any changes in the environment.
Thanks, Ajay. Hardik?
Yeah, and this was one of the biggest problems that we identified. I talked about lean. So the way we built this company is we did some voice of customers, building it as a lean startup, and we've launched our Aerodef Nexus Training Academy. And we are trying to develop specialists. I'll give you an anecdote. I went to an engineering college and met with aerospace engineering department. Most of them are being taught about just the metal tube, aerostructures. They're not even being taught about the AI, not about the connected, ecosystem. They're not being taught about composites. They're not being taught about systems engineering. They're not being taught about program management. And these are all the deeper areas where we're going to go deeper. I was last week in Coimbatore with Zoho Group. And I love their concept. They have something called as Zoho schools. They don't even care about formal education. They do these 2-year courses. And they pick up kids from small villages, tier 2, tier 3, and they build the talent ground up. I sat down with Sridhar Vambu, and I really love the gentleman. Now, he's doing some phenomenal work, and that's something that I am thinking towards as well. Now, the first course that we've launched is called Composite 101. And it's very different. It's not going to be taught by the academicians, right? It's going to be by the industrialists, people who worked in the industry, who've done their hard yards. I'm teaching the first module. It's live on our website. The second module will be launched from Coimbatore. And this is going to be a friend of mine who's the CEO of a composite manufacturing plant, 35 crore brand new plant, greenfield plant. Same, likewise, I'm going to go to Tatas, I'm going to go to L&Ts, and I'm going to get all the nectar out of, real life experience out of people. Eventually, once the 101's done, we're going to go to 201, which would be the boot camp. Essentially, we would take students in a batch of 20, 25 people. They would build parts, they would fail parts, they would inspect parts, they would learn things hands-on. What's missing in our country is this hands-on learning. We're also thinking about tying up with, several ITIs, MSME Technology Center is one of the example. I was at MSME Technology Center a few weeks ago in Bangalore, and it seems like they're going to be opening it up pretty soon. And those are all the areas that we're looking at. We're looking at developing centers of excellence in various colleges. We've started with Bangalore, but we want to expand it to all the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And this for us is not just for ourselves. I was talking about building a village, but truly building that village by launching this line of business is a priority number one. Because if you really want to make a difference, you need the specialists. You need the talent that today exists in parcels. There are pockets of excellence, but it's not uniform. There's also another problem that's happening. Rich are becoming richer. Kids who go to IITs, fly out of our country, and the kids who go to tier 2 and tier 3 cities are not even able to get jobs. And all they do is, since their dad and mom have a lot of money, they would go to Germany, US, and do their masters, and they say India is a bad place. I don't think so. That's something that we're trying to change. We're trying to stop the brain drain and our little capacity, whatever we could do.
Thanks, Hardik. Yash?
Yeah, I think we need to make drone jobs a bit lucrative so that they don't go to Boeing and Airbus. But yeah, fun aside, as the whole ecosystem is growing, so this part is also growing, as I mentioned by everyone. People like industry and academia are collaborating for various things, be it boot camps or some short-term courses and long-term courses as well, as launched by some of the IITs such as IIT Guwahati. So we are doing it along with IIT Guwahati as a partner. So like this, a lot of IITs are taking a step ahead and skilling the students. And yes, definitely, once students are into the industry, as they grow, that job also needs to grow with them. And it's more like balancing out the things, because a lot of people who had worked in the drone industry initially, they moved to Airbus, Boeing, something like this. So to stop it, we have to make it lucrative.
Thanks. Yes. We are in the last part of the, we have got only 5 minutes left. Gentlemen, we have got 2-3 questions because we can't take much. We have got a list of questions which we will answer after the webinar. So there is Mr. Sesadri. He's a technical sales manager from Hipro. You can also see the questions, it's there. They're into plastic molding and machining, sheet metal and all. And they are working for many aerospace companies for checking fixture, drone companies for machining, injection molding and rapid prototyping. He's asking what kind of expectation are drone companies were set for manufacturing partners like us, and what they should do to gel and work. Anybody can take it. Sarath?
Yeah, I guess it's, one about the quality. That is the most important thing, which is what, as a mindset more than as a component per se. Second is also about adaptability, because a lot of things are changing. And as a drone OEM, we are dependent on the client. This is one industry that I worked, among others, where there is very little standardization. It hasn't happened so far. Okay. So everything is changed. Every customer wants something different. Every tender has its own specs. It doesn't fit in with bulk of what's already there in the market. So we have to lean back. It's reverse engineering back to our component suppliers and all that. Third is also that there are times that we see that we go with certain materials, certain components and all, and eventually get that certified. And then we see a problem either in the quality or the texture or something else. That doesn't put us in good shape, because we already approved that with the type certification and all that, right? So those are certain nuances, but yes, as we mature, I think the ecosystem is maturing and doing all that. They can work on certain new innovations and figure out what is the new technology in composites and others that are happening. That will be of great value, because we would use that as a differentiator as we go to our customers.
I hope your question is answered, Sesatri ji. We have one question to Ezi. Like you mentioned, drone, this showcase is capable of returning under GPS denied situation. Is that technology developed in India, or is it exported from Western technology based sun polarization?
No, it's 100% developed by us. We've been working on it for almost 2-3 years. So it works largely based on vision-based navigation, right? So it's 100% our own.
Made in India.
Yeah.
Thank you. And one last question we have, like, I don't know, someone has mentioned that there are 9 major components in drone. So can you tell what those are?
Okay, so this I had mentioned it in the context of the US NDAA regulation, right? So US has this National Defense Authorization Act where they have said that 9 critical components in a drone which handles data, for example, the networking components, the autopilot, anything which handles data, for example, is a critical component, right? So the plastic doesn't matter, the maybe the whatever, right? It's like things which are dumb components don't matter. So things which handle data has to be sourced from a country which is not a country of concern, sourced from a non-Chinese background, right? So I think that's what I had mentioned. So I think you can just look it up. If you just search for NDAA regulation, then it will get the list of 9 critical components.
At least I can submit. People are listening it very carefully. So we are on the last part. Any message from any of the speakers? Any what you want to communicate to our readers or to the industry?
I mean, I just say to everybody, I mean, the ecosystem, to all the people out there, you know, make sure that, you know, like you said, quality systems, forward thinking, but you know, we've just got to build a village, and the village requires all of us to work together. And I think that's the most important message, you know, in this country is whatever space, specifically as we work on UAVs, we work on, you know, whether it's in the defense, agriculture, logistic, healthcare, this is going to be a very important part of our journey. And I think, you know, build quality products, build, you know, build businesses with integrity, and I think you'll get success. Don't chase round ABC to a lot of the startups, as I can say that. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks for that, Sarath.
Well, exciting times. This is your time. Every industry waits for a day like this, so it's sort of our time. Let's make it count. I think the most important piece is to look at the end customer and the use case, and building a good product that will work for them. There's nothing that beats that. Nothing comes close to that. So let's focus on that. Then I'm sure, you know, Indian ecosystem would be written in the books whenever there is a book on global drones that will be written. But it's not going to happen without quality and without delivering those products which are top notch with the global standards.
And thanks, Sarath. Ezzy.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I think let's think of it as one industry. I think and build the ecosystem rather than trying to let's grow the pie, right? Rather than fighting for a small pie, I think there is a very, very large pie which we can all participate in. And for that, I think it's cool to say that I'm a drone company, but it will be much more profitable and sustainable if you are making a really good motor, for example.
Hardik?
No, you know, I think the opportunity is huge, and like Ezzy said, I agree. You know, the play is not just the aircraft play or the airframe play. The systems and the mission critical systems, the engines, the autonomy stake, the composites, and each of these areas we got to invest. So, you know, the way we think about it is it's got to be a combination of, you know, early revenues by services, reinvest that money into technology, and then build your products. You got to have your flywheel built. That way you are in this game for the long run. Like many other speakers say, this is a marathon, my friend, and you know, you gotta be ready for this marathon. If you're gonna burn out in sprints, this is not a business that you should be in. But the opportunity is just huge. The country's GDP growth is right there. We're already the 4th largest economy. We will be the 3rd largest economy by 2030. And I think the opportunity is just immense. And it's for all of us to come together to, you know, bring it to fruition. It's not just the government's job. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Hardik. Yash?
Yeah, so both the country and the industry is on a positive growth curve. So let's make it count, as said by Sarath. As an ecosystem, let's build the things, and to all the ecosystem partners, be it the component manufacturers, software developers, everyone, let's do it together, and surely we are going to come out with flying colors.
Thanks, yes. And thanks everyone. Before we, you know, sign off, Laghu Udyog Bharati is hosting 7th edition of India Manufacturing Show 2025 in Bangalore from 6th to 8th of November, which is being supported by Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Steel, and they will be having conference on 3 days. And we want to invite everybody to join that event. It's a 3-day show happening in Bangalore. Thanks everyone. Thanks Uday-san. Thanks Sarath. Thanks Vikramji. Thanks
Thanks
SG.
everybody.
And
Nice to see you.
have a great day. Thanks for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.